Here we are again with the Sledge. So first and foremost, I'm going to show you how to split and layer sounds. Because there's a lot of people who still don't know that, and the manual doesn't cover it because the manual sucks. It's very easy. All you really got to do, let's say I want a bass sound down here and a chord sound up here. So I'm going to choose my bass sound. I have a bass sound set to 198. All I gotta do, I got my bass sound here, and let's see. Let's say I want the chords to start at middle C. So what do? I just hold middle C, and then choose the patch I want to go up here. So I'll go. I chose 200, which is that profit. So now you've got your bass sound down here and your chords up here. Now you can also layer patches. Very similar procedure, except instead of choosing one note, you'll just play a chord. So you play a chord. Holding that chord, you'll choose whatever patch you want to layer it with. In this case, I just went up one. It's that easy. Now, I was doing this one day, and it occurred to me, wait a second. Maybe that's why people keep running into this so-called init bug. The big concern with the Sledge that I keep getting people emailing me and asking me, oh, have you ever had this bug? Is apparently in the software of this synthesizer, there is a chance that you'll go to one of your patches, like say, one of your saved patches, and it'll be an initialized, like a blank patch, like say, I don't know, let me go with blank spot. It says init, as in initialized. So, people have said that they've run into this bug. I ran into it once on my yellow Sledge, and it didn't bother me, and I'll tell you why. Because all you have to do, if on some off chance you do run into this bug, is just go up one or down one and go back. That's it. So if you go to a patch and it's initialized, just boop boop, and now it's back. Now some people say that locked up their machine. I don't see how that could really be. Well, I didn't until around the time I started layering patches, and it occurred to me that the way they implemented the split and layer, with holding notes and switching different sounds, that might have something to do with it. Because I see all these people who want to show this bug, and the first thing they do is they playing chords and notes and going through and switching through all different sounds as rapidly as they possibly can, and I don't know why they do that. I don't see how that would benefit you in a musical performance to be going apeshit with the data knob. But I think the reason that you might run into that bug in doing this is that the CPU in here is trying to figure out what the fuck you want to do. It's like, well, because remember, when you hold a note, it's making split and layer points. If you're playing chords and moving all around, it's trying to layer all different sounds together. So as you're screwing around, scrolling through the different patches and playing all willy-nilly, it's trying to figure out, wait, does he want us to split it? Does he want us to layer it? Which patch is it on? He wants us to put... Now you're running out of voices. You're overloading the CPU. And I'm not going to do that because I don't see the point. And I don't do that, and thus I don't encounter that bug. But if you, for some weird reason, have to do that, if it's your genetic imperative to be cycling through sounds 100 miles an hour, you could go to global, boop, scroll down all the way until you get to a parameter that's called auto dual mode, split and layer, on or off. Now by default it's set to on because that's how they implemented the split and layer. If you turn it off, you won't actually be able to split and layer patches using the method I just showed you anymore, which might actually free you up from that glitch in the event that you have to be screwing around through the patches. Again, I don't know why you do that, but it's out there now for everyone to know. Now that that's out of the way, I'm going to show you something that the Sledge does that I don't see any other synth do. That is, we all know that you get your first oscillator, you get like your traditional analog waveforms, your sawtooth, square, triangle. You get up to this top one up here, and it's a wavetable oscillator. Now, people who own a Sledge know this already. It allows you to access the old PPG wavetables. You choose which wavetable you want with the big, giant, hard-to-miss orange knob. And then with the shape knob, you decide you could sweep the wavetable. And then you mix that with, your traditional analog waveforms, and it takes on this great kind of hybrid, best of both worlds type of sound. But you'll notice that on the second and third oscillator, you have FM by oscillator 1, FM by oscillator 2. Now, this allows you to modulate oscillator 1 or oscillator 2 when you have it set to triangle or sine wave. You can have it modulate the wave shape of this oscillator with this one, with the first one. So, and so on and so forth. You can have oscillator 2 modulate oscillator 3, as long as you're in the triangle or sine wave mode. You use these wave shape knobs to kind of let the audio in. But what's interesting here is, if you're using a digital wavetable on oscillator 1, right, you're going to end up using that wavetable to modulate, frequency modulate, a pure triangle or sine wave. And then you can do it again. So what that means is you can actually kind of access this infinitum of waveforms. I'll give you an example. If you were to just use a standard old saw, right? I'll set it down to 16 foot. Bring in the second oscillator and mute the first. So here's our triangle with no... Turn off that reverb. So here's our triangle. And now watch what happens. As I bring this in, you're hearing it. Again, goes from pure triangle. But as what's happening here is I crank this. You're starting to get audio rate modulation from this oscillator set to sawtooth through a triangle. And in the extreme ranges, it's an angry SOB. And that's no distortion, that's just one oscillator. Now, you have to take into consideration that whatever this oscillator is set to while you're using it to modulate the second, it's going to have a profound effect on the second's sound. So if I go ahead and switch the oscillator's octave from 16 to 8, watch what happens. Keep going. Not exactly musical, in my opinion. You'll find uses for it. If you go really low, like to 64, you're basically taking it down to sub audio range. Now, if you really listen. Does that sound familiar? No. Hold on. Let me bring it back a little. It almost sounds like a sawtooth modulating the pitch of the triangle. That's because it is. I'm using a sawtooth. I've got it kicked down into almost LFO range, and I'm using it to modulate a triangle. And I'm allowing the modulation in with the shape knob. So now when you think about that's cool enough, because you can, you have all these extra analog waveforms, but where you really will run into some cool stuff is when you go up here and you use one of those many digital waveforms to modulate it. Because these are really unique waveforms. These aren't like your standard saw, sine. These are, they're wavetables. So let me go ahead and mute oscillator 2, let in oscillator 1. So let's pick a really loud, obnoxious waveform. So, digital waveform here. Let's go to something like, say... Here we go. I want to go to one called Clipper. There it is. And now you can sweep it. I'll leave it down here on the harsh edge. So now we're going to take that off. Here's what that obnoxious, angry waveform sounds like being run through the triangle. So you're hearing that PPG wave modulating the, and I have it set to a triangle, modulating this triangle here. Also, detuning will affect the sound here. But again, I'm just using oscillator 2. What does that mean? Well, now that means I can go on to oscillator 3. I also have a triangle here, and I can do the same thing. I can take the output from oscillator 2, which is being modulated by a wavetable of oscillator 1, and then multiply it, do the same thing in oscillator 3. It'll start to get crazy if you gotta watch these levels here. So you can understand now, I'm basically filtering very unique digital wavetables through triangle or sine waves twice. So by the time you get to the third oscillator, considering all the things you could do to affect the sound before it even gets there, you realize you can actually make an infinite amount of, or seemingly infinite amount of waveforms here, because you've already got 60-something different wavetables, all sweepable from a range of 0 to 127. So and then that's before you even touch the the pitch and the tuning, and you're basically filtering it through triangles and sines. So by the time you get to oscillator 3, it's a totally unique waveform, something you've never heard before. Now, for the purpose of this demonstration, clarity, I have the filter wide open, organ type sustain, so it'll just keep going. And obviously this isn't a really good demonstration because the only sounds I'm getting right now are these weird kind of... And the reason why that's happening is I have the second oscillator's shape turned up a little too high. You gotta keep this in mind, that it's affecting the pitch, right? So if you go and crank it here, it's gonna sound fucked up by the time it's gonna be totally out of tune. So you want to have it just a little bit. And then you really let it in there. I'm going to switch to triangle here to give it a little more purity. And you can use oscillator sync to help keep it in tune if you want. You just have to tune it. Ooh. Never mind. I don't have the octave set right, so we're not even going to do that. So I just wanted to show you guys that you can actually really get creative with the waveforms here. But now, some more stuff I want to show you. This is a little bit more nuanced. The LFOs on the Sledge are kind of unique because LFO 1 and the wheel, which is an LFO that you can either bring in with the wheel or with aftertouch, hence the name wheel, both of those are not phase locked. So, meaning essentially that it's a polyphonic LFO. When most people hear an LFO, I'm going to set up a nice sound to demonstrate it. They picture a slow, symmetrical, even kind of modulation of a sound. So I'll just use LFO 2 as an example, because LFO 2 is phase locked. It's monophonic. This is where you're going to want to use, you know, if you want to do like some tremolo or like filter sweeps, if you want steady, you know, rhythmic sounds without it going all over the place and being polyphonic, you'll use oscillator 2. Sorry, I'm a little bit flustered because you have to use all this language and terminology. It gets hard to speak sometimes. So anyway, I have it set to modulate oscillator 2. You can hear it. It's just a steady. Every note is playing evenly. I'll do filter sweeps. Hold the sustain pedal. Right? You can even see it blinking. But now if I do that same thing with oscillator 1, you hear? They're all kind of coming in differently. Now, some people don't like this, which on the original yellow Sledge, in the first version, they were all polyphonic. And I said I didn't really like that because I want at least one LFO which is I could just do steady, you know, even modulation. But when they updated it and phase locked the second LFO, now you get the even modulation and you get the polyphonic modulation. It almost reminds me of polymod on a Prophet 5 because you could get kind of similar. That's cool to me. If you want to do like a mellotron, you know, like flute sounds, and you want it to sound like a choir of flutes, all with different vibrato rates, all opening and closing, that's how you'd want to do it. You'd use a polyphonic LFO. So when you combine all this, for example, I'll use a reverse sawtooth. I will just use this by going negative here. Oh, got to zero out the first LFO. Okay, so now we got a simple. I'm gonna get it to something rhythmic. Here we go. Now I have an even modulation here, and then uneven modulation here. So you get a lot of movement now. And that's not even bringing in the wheel, which I'll use. This is also polyphonic, but I tend to use the aftertouch more than the modulation wheel, because it's the same thing. You can either bring this in with the wheel, or just by pressing a little harder. So what I'll do is I'll bring in some vibrato, set up a nice pleasant rate. Okay, so now again, I'm just modulating really the filter with two different LFOs. I'm using one oscillator, and listen to that. The cool thing is, and I'm telling you all about this because I got a big surprise for you at the end. That's gonna have something to do with this. When you have a polyphonic LFO, and you slow the rate down, way down, almost to nothing. I'll even turn off that rhythmic effect. I'm gonna use this sustain pedal. Listen to it. I love how slow the LFOs on this can be. Listen to that. It's like it's alive. So now, hold on a second. If you want that kind of classic analog drift, you see where this might come in handy. You can have all the oscillators use LFO1, or the wheel if you want, but LFO1's easier. I'll have all the oscillators and I'll just go plus like 6, right? Real slow sine wave, right? And now watch what happens. I'm going to open the filter all the way. I got an octave held. You hear them drifting? I'll bring it back to 0. Perfectly in tune. That's just +4, slow sine wave. Let's really detune the shit out of it. Here we go, now it sounded like my old chord prologue. This same LFO that can go to pretty much 0 hertz, slow as hell, can also go into the audio range, which is cool. It's almost there right here. What's happening now is it's modulating the pitch so fast that you're actually beginning to hear a secondary tone because of the speed of the LFO. It's no longer an LFO, it's in the audio range. Now what happens, what you could do is tune the LFO. So what I'll do is I'll have 2 oscillators here, and I'll only affect oscillators 2 and 3 with the LFO. So the first one should be untouched. Okay, so I'll use the second LFO to add just some pleasant vibrato to oscillator 1. I'll actually have it going backwards. Negative, I should say. There we go. And then with LFO 2, LFO 1, excuse me. You see what I mean? It's hard to keep track of where the hell you are. I'll bring in the modulation that's at high frequency range. So now you hear it. You can tune this. You hear how it just kind of got in tune there? Listen again. I'll crank the sustain. There it is. At 125 it gets in tune. Now I'm gonna go like +33 here. So now it's sharp. But never fear, I can adjust that. In case you were wondering, you can do that same thing with the filter. But be careful, if you go past like, if you go past like +40, you could blow your goddamn speakers at that range. Watch. Okay, yeah, we're not gonna do that. But I have it at like plus 37. And you end up getting this rock, this bombastic kind of almost, again, it almost sounds like polymod on the Prophet 5, modulating the filter. Without it, standard poly brass sound. With it, just add some grit. So now I gotta wrap this up, but here's the surprise. I've been doing some hacking into this machine to kind of access some of those hidden parameters we all hear about, and yeah, there's a bunch of them. And one of the ones I like the most, or that I find the most useful, is UNISON. And this machine, I don't know why they don't have a button for this. These are a lot of hidden features that you can only access through like MIDI CC messages. But I'm going to save these template sounds and I'll put them in the link under the description so you can download them and start cracking. But just a quick demonstration. Here's, just to give you an idea of what I'm working with, here's a notch filter. Comb filter. This one tends to only work well in monophonic mode, these comb filters. I'm not sure if it's something overloading the signal chain, but when you play like polyphonically, you lose keys, and I'm not sure if that was just something I did when messing with it. So I'm not going to release that one yet. I'm going to fuck with that one a little more, but I will be releasing the comb filters and the 5-voice unison. Yes, unison on a Sledge. Now you may think, how are you detuning it? If there's no unison detune, well, I'm using that same trick. I'm on LFO1. I've got all 3 oscillators. I got, modulating the pitch of all 3 oscillators with a very slow sine wave. So what ends up happening is it's basically just like a natural detune. So here's no detune at all, and you're gonna notice it kind of sounds phasey. That's not good. You just get a doubling in volume. You want that detune. So again, observe all 3 slow sine or triangle, and then as I turn this, you can go into the exaggerate. But here's your unison detune right here. But now here's the funny thing. This is only a 5-voice unison, meaning this is still polyphonic. This is a 24-voice synth. So what the hell is a 24-voice unison sound like? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is the kind of bass end that will clear constipation. Observe. I'm going to detune it even more. 3. Bring some drive in. And when you add vibrato, I'm going to just go back to 1 oscillator to give you an idea. Since the wheel is polyphonic LFO as well, you kind of just get this super saw effect. But in the context of vibrato, it doesn't really, it's not that noticeable. God, you're not really hearing that properly, but I can feel the friggin' air from the speaker cone moving the hair on my leg. Like it's some powerful shit. And since you could do that polyphonic detuning thing with the LFO, you could do the same thing with the filter, right? So what will that do? Well, I have a patch here that I think should demonstrate it quite easily. I have a filter sweep in 12 decibel mode, right? Like this, right? But not only am I detuning the oscillators, well, you guys are gonna shit when you hear this, I have it also detuning the filter with the mod wheel a la Oberheim OBX, so that when I press a key, yes, no, this isn't just controlling the Sonic Project's OPX. It's actually coming from the Sledge. Listen to that, man. I'm gonna give you more. Oh, man. Wonder what that would sound like if I had it all saw waves. how about sample and hold? Sounds like the end of Mr. Roboto. But yeah, that should give you an idea of some of the hidden parameters. Again, I'm going to include these patches here in the link below. You're going to get the comb, not the comb, you're going to get the notch filters, 24 and 12 decibel per octave slopes, and I'll give you the 5-voice unison, which, again, you can actually split the keyboard and have a 5-voice bass down here, and you know, your chords up here. I mean, it's great. So I encourage you to all mess around. I'm going to be releasing another set of patches. I've had some inspiration, I guess, with layering sounds and just some of the more interesting sounds, like the one in the song I just released. God, I love the keyboard on this, the aftertouch. Anyway, I better upload these sounds then. See you guys when I see you.